And good afternoon, everyone. It's 4 p.m. here in Baguio City. My name is Gabe Mercado, and I am the host of Out of This World Conversations. It's something that we do here in Vivi Stop Baguio, where we will have conversations with adults doing awesome things. And today is our very first episodes, and we're going to have different kids ask questions of odd adults with awesome jobs. And we're kicking off our series today. You can watch us live on our Facebook page, Vivi Stop Baguio, Vivita Philippines, or on Vivi Stop Baguio, Vivita Philippines on YouTube. This is happening live, and we're going to be doing this throughout the Thursdays of September at 4 p.m. live here on our Facebook channel. And for the very first guest here in our Out of This World conversations, we are going to be featuring an adult who has done awesome things. He is a microbial oceanographer. He's been to the Arctic. He's been to one of the deepest places in the ocean, and he is a doctor. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk to him. He's going to tell us about all that he does and all the awesome things he's been into. Let's all welcome, ladies and gentlemen, kids of all ages, Dr. Deo Onda. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Deo.
Yes, good afternoon, Gabe, and good afternoon to all the kids and kids at heart who are listening to us from all over the world. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, or good night on or wherever you are. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, the kids were so excited to have you because you
Yeah.
are the one of the only. I'm not sure if you're the first Filipino to make it down the Emden Deep, which is
Yeah.
the third deepest part of the ocean.
Yes. Luckily, I get to be the first Filipino to see what we have down there, an extension of our marine heritage in the Philippine Trench. So yeah, I'm here to tell the tales of the deep, I guess.
Yeah, when we first told a select group of our kids uh, that you were our first guest, they researched you right away, and they
Oh,
already sent some questions ahead.
of time,
Actually, and
yeah.
they'll be asking already some questions. Um, some questions as we go along. But before you get buried with all the questions, maybe we'll give you a little bit of time first to tell us all about what you do and how you got there.
Yeah, sure. Probably, to demonstrate how I got here and how I became very much involved in science. I grew up in a very small island called Palawan. It's in the west of the Philippines. It's very far away. There's not much people around you. So growing up, whenever I was asked what do you want to be when you grow up, I never said that I wanted to be a scientist. I always I want to be a teacher, I want to be a policeman, or probably a medical doctor, but never a PhD holder or a scientist in that sense. But growing up in on the side of the ocean, I wanted to believe that I'm actually a son of the sea, and that really inspired me to go in this direction. So this afternoon, let me share some slides.
Okay.
My objective is that after this session, I hope a lot of the kids who are listening right now would also say, someday I want to be like Deo, or someday I want to be a marine scientist. So for this, I want to tell you a story. So I entitled the story. Wait, let me just share my screen.
Sure.
There you go. Um, the title of my story is that to the coldest, the richest, and the deepest. So it's the adventures of Deo. I wanted the kids to understand that being a scientist is also becoming or is also having a lot of fun, a lot of adventures, and a lot of explorations to do. So I will be bringing you guys to the coldest, the richest, and the deepest parts of the world, which will also show you the adventures I had throughout the years. So just to start off, I'm a microbial oceanographer. It's something that you wouldn't really hear every day or someone that you will not meet every day. I think in the Philippines right now there's only person who's doing my work, and that would be me. So I'm the only microbial oceanographer in the Philippines. Although there are a lot of microbial oceanographers in Europe, in the US, there's not much in the Philippines. The area of my research, my discipline, or my research interest is still growing, and I hope some of you later on would also become microbial oceanographers. So what do I do? I study microorganisms, and when we say microorganisms, this include the viruses, the things that cannot be seen by the naked eye, but are actually everywhere and all around us. This include the bacteria, the viruses, some of the phytoplankton that you see in the ocean, and then I am also an oceanographer, which means that I study the oceans. I study how it's moving, what are the processes, what are the implications of the changes in the oceans to the biology, to the microorganism. So I'm combining best of both worlds. That's why I'm a microbial oceanographer. So just to give you an idea why I'm actually interested with the things that we cannot see. What do you know about the microbes? We are in a pandemic situation right now, and I know most of you cannot go out because you're not allowed to, and that is because there's this microorganism that can cause illness, and that would be the COVID-19 virus. um, the virus is just one of the many microorganisms out there. And because of these things, when I ask people, what do you know about microorganisms? Their reaction would mostly be, it's gross, it's associated with illness, it's associated with diseases, it's yuck, it's everywhere, it's germs. Yeah, partly it's true that many of the microorganisms can actually cause diseases, but in reality, microorganisms are also doing good things. And in the oceans, believe it or not, the oceans is actually almost made up of microorganisms. So, and that's the reason why I was very interested and still very interested to actually study microorganisms. Earth, for example, is 70% water. It is the largest ecosystem. And if you actually look at a milliliter or one drop of seawater under a microscope, you would find a lot of microorganisms. And because there's a lot of them, it also means that they're very important. And if we want to understand how to preserve, how to conserve, and how to sustainably use the marine environment in the oceans, we also need to understand the microorganisms because they are the base of everything, of all the processes in the ocean. So they are the most abundant organisms on Earth. For example, the phytoplankton, the little plants that actually live or float in the oceans, they make up around 50 to 60% of the oxygen that we are breathing. So imagine if a phytoplankton has actually an Instagram account, and then that phytoplankton would actually post something on its Instagram account. This would be that. When you produce half the Earth's oxygen, but trees get all the credit. Because, in school, we were taught that plants and trees actually produce oxygen. And for the longest time, I also believed this. Well, that's partly true. But in reality, many of the oxygen that we are breathing, actually, most of the oxygen that we are breathing, are actually produced by microorganisms that are floating in the ocean. Every other breath you take, thank the phytoplankton for that, because more than half of the oxygen that we are breathing are actually produced by phytoplankton. And because of that, they're very, very important. And that's also the reason why I became a microbial oceanographer, because I wanted to understand how these microorganisms are affecting us every day and how they are also being affected by the changing world. We know about climate change, increasing sea surface temperature, it's warming, global warming. So I'm interested in those kinds of questions. How these changes are affecting the phytoplankton, and in turn, how these changes in the phytoplankton are also affecting us humans. They are also very important because phytoplankton and these microorganisms are the food of the fish. So if the phytoplankton are being affected, what will happen then to the fish? So I always call the phytoplankton and other microorganisms as the small, the dominant, and the significant. Even though we don't see them, they actually play important roles. They are helping us survive every day. Um, our parents always tell us to eat yogurt or probably Yakult, to have a very healthy gut, right? To have very good metabolism. So a healthy microbiome, we call it the microbiome. The organisms, the microorganisms that you find in your gut, we call them our own microbiome. Each of us has actually a unique microbiome, meaning that within our gut, within our stomach, within our tummy, we have our own microorganisms. We have our own symbiotic organisms. These microorganisms actually help us. And that's the reason why we drink Yakult or eat yogurt. So, a healthy person would always have a healthy microbiome. And in the same way, a healthy earth would always have a healthy microbiome or ocean microbiome. But again, the question is the world is changing. You know, sea surface is changing. The temperature of the world is changing because of increasing carbon dioxide, and because of warming, it's also affecting the phytoplankton and the microorganisms. So the question is that if the microbiome in a human changes, the person becomes sick. So the question for me as a scientist is that what will happen then to the earth if the microbiome of the earth also changes? So those are the things that I'm interested with. So for to let you appreciate what I do, it's not just about, talking about every time talking about the microorganisms, but it's also going to different places and trying to explore and understand the microorganisms in these different places. As a scientist and an adventurer myself, I had the privilege of actually going to the most beautiful places. So today, as a continuation of the story, I'll be bringing you to the coldest in the north, in the Arctic, to the richest in the West Philippine Sea, in the west of the Philippines, and to the deepest in the Philippine Trench. So my adventure started in the Philippines, and then I studied in Canada, and then I was able to go to the Arctic, and then from the Arctic I went again to another part of the Arctic, which is actually in Germany, and then I went back to the Philippines. So the coldest, exploring the Great White North. So as a scientist, what I do is actually hop on a ship and go to the Arctic, go to the North Pole. Look for Santa's house along the way. So that's what I do. I try to understand how the world is changing. So this is just some of the ships and the things that I've seen while doing research in the Arctic. Sometimes we go out when the temperature is actually negative 50 degrees. It's very, very extreme, but that was a very good opportunity for me. I get to hop on a helicopter and go around and look for bears and then look for ice and see how the Arctic is actually changing with climate, with global warming. Some of the activities that we do, we deploy equipment to actually understand and to get samples and understand how the world is changing. We get to work with different scientists from all over the world. We hop off ships and then walk on floating ice. So those are actually very exciting times. I also get to witness some of the most magnificent creatures on Earth by becoming a scientist, because I was given the opportunity to actually appreciate the Great White North or the Arctic. So these are just some of the creatures that I've seen in the Arctic. um, this is called the snow owl. So it's very white. It's actually very beautiful. It's very rare. It's very seldom that you would see it in the Arctic. But each time we are also given a live show of aurora borealis. That's the dancing lights in the north. So those are some of the things that I enjoy being a scientist. I also get to enjoy very nice sunsets and also meet a lot of other scientists from all over the world and actually work with them. So that's what I do in the Arctic. I also had the chance to actually see it myself, a family of bears walking on ice, enjoying isolation without anyone around. So those are just some of the interesting things and exciting things that I was able to see. So this is a family. This is a mama bear with two polar bear cubs. They're looking for food. We passed by them as we continued with our research and our journey. The sliding polar bear, this is very funny because this is how polar bears actually walk on ice. When the ice is very thin, they would just slide and they're like dancers. They're very, very graceful, even though the ice is actually very, very thin. So it's actually nice to see. Um, I also I after doing my adventure in the north in the Arctic, I went back to the Philippines, And in the Philippines, I was given the opportunity to actually go to one of the richest and most biodiverse regions on earth, and that is actually the West Philippine Sea. It's the so if this is the Philippines and this is Palawan and this is where I am right now, the islands here are part of the West Philippine Sea and they are ours. They are actually important to us because we depend on them. And I was able to visit them on a ship again on a ship. We visited these islands, we visited the seas, and then studied them from different aspects. We looked at how how warm it is, how saline or how salty it is, what are the different organisms found in the area. Um, we went diving, to look at the corals, the status of the corals, and how they are changing, and what the benefits we actually get from them. So this is our team actually diving and trying to get pictures of different corals. We were also visited by, as we journeyed in the West Philippine Sea, we were always accompanied by very beautiful pods of dolphins. So these are dolphins that are actually sailing with us, on the bow of the ship, on the front of the ship, swimming with us, and they were just playing with us. So they're beautiful. They're actually very inspiring to see. When it is some sort of a validation that when you see these creatures playing with you, it's a validation that somewhat what you're doing is actually you're in a good path. You're doing something good for them, and that validates our work as scientists. We also get to enjoy a lot of different good things, such as the sunsets, golden sunsets in the west of the Philippines. So that's the richest. So I brought you to the coldest and then to the richest. Now I'm going to be bringing you to the deepest. So um, when we talk about explorations, mostly people talk about outer space, the moon, the Mars, or outer space, going on a rocket and going out there. But there's another world down there that we haven't really fully explored or discovered, and that is actually the trenches. So the deepest trench in the world is called the Mariana Trench. It is found in the middle of the Pacific and is equivalent to around one and a half of the Mount Everest. So even Mount Everest can be submerged, fully submerged to that depth. So it's around 3,200 feet. The second deepest trench in the world is called the Tonga Trench. It's found in Tonga. And it is around 35,702 feet, which is equivalent to the height of at which the planes can actually fly to. But the third deepest trench is the Philippine Trench. Now, the Mariana Trench and the Tonga Trench have been visited before. There are a lot of people who had been down there, who actually went down there 10,000 meters below and see what's down there. But the Philippine Trench is very unique because no one had been there before. And last March, just this year, I got the invitation to join this very awesome explorer, Victor Viscovo, to actually go down and visit the Philippine Trench, the deepest point, which is the Emden Deep. It is the third deepest place on Earth. So that was actually amazing. It was an amazing experience for me as a scientist. Um, so now I think Gabe can show you a video of what we've done there and the things that we've seen. And hopefully you get inspired to also become a scientist by by seeing what we've seen and discovered what we've discovered. So hopefully you get to enjoy this video presentation.
I am Deo Onda. I am a Filipino and I am an oceanographer. So I work as an associate professor at the University of the Philippines, the Marine Science Institute. My research interests include microbial oceanography, which looks into the role of the microorganisms in the oceans. I also do a lot of plastics work right now, microplastics, and related stuff on pollution. So I was invited by Canada Oceanic. The Emden Deep Expedition is the first attempt to actually go to the third deepest spot on Earth. It's never been done before. We don't even know where is the exact spot where Emden Dip is located or the deepest part of the Philippine Trench. And I think it is a history in the making primarily because it has never been done and it is the first time that we will be able to see what is down there.
Welcome, everybody. Thought we'd have a bit of a meet and greet because there are some new faces around. Talk a little bit about the trip we're about to have and get to know a little bit more about what we intend to do. Looking forward to taking part in this incredible sailing up to the Philippine Trench, where we will be doing something that's never been done before. One of the most significant things we're going to be doing on this trip is going up to the Philippines Trench, which, if you don't know, is almost as deep as Challenger. It was thought for a long time to be the deepest point on Earth, so this is quite a significant thing. We have Dr. Onda from the Philippines, who's going to be joining us and will be the first person from the Philippines to dive the Philippine Trench.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Victor, for the invitation and to the entire team of this amazing vessel. So I'm the youngest oceanographer in the Philippines, and it is an honor for me to actually do this on behalf of the Philippines. So I'd like to thank you for giving me that opportunity. Deep sea explorations are actually similar to the early flights in outer space. And the Philippine Trench is a unique feature within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone. Most of the records of the deep sea dives are being held by foreign explorers and scientists. And I think the Philippine Trench being within the territory of the Philippines, I think it is important that a Filipino be represented to be one of the first record holders of the deep dive to be happen in this area.
Oh, we're in. You are cleared to dive. Roger that. Life support is good. I've got a green board. We are cleared to dive. Pumping in. All right, here we are. We're at 9,900 meters. Looks like I have a happy passenger, and we're about to get to the bottom of the Philippine Trench for the first time in history by anybody. Anybody. You see the bottom? 5 meters.
Yeah, it's really getting there. It is.
That's the bottom of the Philippine Trench.
This is the deepest part of the Philippine Trench.
We're showing a raw depth of 10,045 meters. Third deepest place on the planet.
The surface is not smooth.
No, it's not. It's interesting. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
First people at the bottom of the Philippine Trench, first Filipino below 10,000 meters.
Yeah.
Well done.
And the first time that the Philippine Trench has been visited.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Surface, LF, depth 10045. Life support good. At bottom. Repeat. At bottom.
There he is. Whoa. There he is. There he is.
lot of stuff on the seafloor. Oh, that's detritus. That one? That's garbage down there. I'm pretty sure. I thought it was a reflection, but yeah, I'm seeing it. Lord, there's a lot of debris down here, much more than I expected. And now we're just slowly creeping our way up, seeing if we can see any rocks or anything other remarkable, but pretty non-featured here. I'm actually very honored to be part of this trip and sa mga Pilipino, ito po ang Emden Deep, atin ito. Awesome.
Yeah, so we went for the first time to the Emden Deep in the Philippine Trench. The experience of just going there, it's like going in another world, and that's really awesome. But I hope this trip or journey itself would inspire more Filipinos to dream, more Filipinos to be ambitious with their journeys in life, and I hope it would also inspire more younger Filipinos to actually become scientists, to become marine scientists, or to become just explorers.
Well, it's always really fun to take scientists down into the deep areas because this is what they've studied. And to actually have personal witness of these incredibly deep places they never thought they'd be able to go, it really is a joy for me to be able to bring that to people and to scientists all over the world.
Through this, you'll be able to experience Emden Deep through my experiences. And from there, hopefully, we do more things to care for more about the environment, to actually protect it, conserve it, and preserve it.
So there you go. The Our chat boxes are bursting. Ang daming gustong magtanong, Doc Deo. While we choose, there are people who actually sent questions ahead when they found out, and I think I have to start with this one. How did you pee
Um,
being
you're
in the
not allowed
submarine?
to.
Oh, okay. So
So
how did
that's a part of the training, part of the preparation. So the submersible is actually very small. I think it's just a meter wide and a meter tall. So it's just a ball, and it can only accommodate two persons. Part of the preparation is one, not to eat anything the night before. So there's no toilet inside. So part of the preparation is to not eat anything the night before, and also dehydrate yourself the night before. So the entire journey took around 12 hours. 4 hours going down, 4 hours exploring the bottom, and then 4 hours going up. Well, in case of emergency, with there are things that we call the pee bottle. So you have a bottle to relieve yourself. But generally, the idea is, to avoid anything that would lead to nature calling you. So that's part of the preparation. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. The next question, I think this pertains more to the North Pole, uh, or to the Arctic. No penguins. Were you able to feed the bears?
Um, so that's the characteristic of the two poles, right? You find polar bears in the north, but not in the south, and then you find penguins in the south and not in the north. We're able to feed the penguins. No, we are not allowed to interact with the wildlife while you are out there, so as not to disturb with their natural behavior. We can observe them from afar, but there's a certain distance that we need to keep. Polar bears are actually one of the most dangerous animals out there. They're very territorial, but they're also very voracious. So they will just eat and grab any moving organism in front of them. So you don't want to be that organism. You don't want to be the prey. You don't want to be the target. But yeah, but it's very fascinating, and it's really, for me, a privilege to to observe them in the wild, in person.
Wow. Okay. There are a few more questions here. Uh, were you scared?
Were you scared going down there in the Endem Deep? Not really. My mother was very, very scared. Funny story is that I didn't tell anyone that I was going to the Endem Deep until a few days before when I was already on the ship.
Oh,
So I
wow.
didn't tell my girlfriend. I didn't tell my family. My supervisors in my work, of course, no, because I needed to get permission. But I didn't tell anybody. So I just told them I'm going to Guam. They thought it's just the usual vacation or usual trip that I do. So I hopped on the ship, and then my institute told me, okay, we need to release the we need to have the press release now because this is a milestone. And the Philippine government also thought that it's just necessary to do that, to do a press release. So everybody knew it when I was already on the ship. Where a few days before I did the dive. Good thing I was already on the ship because my phones did not
They can't
stop
get you now.
ringing. Yeah. But I wasn't scared. I was very prepared, primarily because I'm an oceanographer. I'm a marine scientist. So I already have an idea of what to expect and how things could actually be happening down there. I also have the full confidence of, the technology surrounding the submersible which we use. It's one of the best technologies out there. So I'm not really scared. The group, the team behind it's not just me and Victor, the pilot, who were involved. There's a group of 20 people on deck, on board, who were watching and monitoring everything that has been happening. And I know they have my full confidence. I was more excited actually.
Wow. Okay. So we're bursting at the seams with questions. So I'm going to invite some of the kids over to join us on the call. We have Sari, Alex, Sophie, Joey, Ian, Chloe. Um, does anybody have a question that they want to ask Doc Deo? Okay, I start.
Everybody has a question.
Alex is the first, and then I'll go to Sari, and then Sophie, and then Joey. Alex, go ahead.
What animals have you seen when you were down in the ocean?
Um, the different depths of the ocean would harbor different types of organisms. Fish don't live at 10,000 meters. So 10,000 meters is like 10 kilometers. So at 10,000 meters, you won't find any fishes anymore. You won't find organisms that actually have backbones. So what we found are creatures called amphipods. They're like the cockroaches of the sea. They're very small. They can actually get big, but what they do is scavenge because there's not much food in the bottom of the ocean. What they do is scavenge. So they would wait for anything that would fall from the surface going down. We also found a lot of what we call anemone. So there are actually anemone down there. The things that the creatures that actually live with where Nemo lives, but very smaller ones, very small ones. They have their own protection. That's why they form their own suits. So those are some of the things that we've seen. We've also observed from the camera that there were a lot of big shrimp looking like things, and
Ooh.
then jellyfish. There's jellyfish down there. But I have not seen, unfortunately, I have not seen megalodons or giant squids.
Sayang. We'll go to Sophie, Sari, and then Joey. Sophie, go ahead. Thanks, Alex.
Were you not able to see an angler fish?
An anglerfish, no.
No?
Again, the fish, there are different types of fish that you would find at the different depths. And because we went directly to the 10,000 meters, we missed whatever we could find in the other depths. The the descent rate, meaning the how fast the submersible goes down, is quite fast. It's around a meter per second.
Ooh.
Oh, so yeah, and it slows down as you go deeper because the density of the water also increases, and therefore the buoyancy increases. So we were not able to see anglerfish. The anglerfish would be found in the more shallower depths probably, but
So
not
around how
10,000.
many minutes from the time you entered the water would there be possibly
The what? Sorry.
around how many minutes from the time you entered the water would could you possibly see anglerfish? If you're
Anglerfish.
really looking.
I think
Mga-
anglerfish is around 100
Oh,
1,000 meters, I think.
okay.
So yeah, you can calculate at 1 meter per second. That would that would be 1,000 seconds or something like that.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Okay, Sam.
the rate at which the submersible goes down is actually affected by the salinity and the temperature. And because temperature and salinity increases as you go down, the density increases, and therefore the buoyancy decreases. So yeah, it really varies where you are in the water column.
Yeah, before we go to Sari from I think is somewhat related. Were you able to see any bioluminescent creatures?
Um, I did not personally see it,
Okay.
but when we reviewed the camera, it it got some images of possible bioluminescent organisms because we only have two windows, and those windows were actually very small, so it's quite
Yeah.
difficult to see things from inside. But there were eight cameras surrounding the submersible, and some of those actually got bioluminescent pictures of certain organisms. We haven't identified them yet, but yeah,
If you saw the lights.
I'm not surprised anyway because bioluminescence is very prominent in the dark water, in the dark region of the ocean.
Okay, Sari, you're up.
Did you saw some symbiosis in the ocean?
Mm. There's a lot of symbiosis happening out there. I personally study organisms that are associated.
Sea urchins protect the crabs, and then the crab shares his snack with the sea urchin.
Yeah, you would find them in the reefs. So there's a lot of interactions like that. But me personally, what I study are microorganisms that are symbiotic to other organisms. So, for example, I look at the gut of fish or the gut of different animals and try to see what kind of microorganisms are found inside of them. Because, like you need to have yogurt. The organisms in the sea also need to have very good bacteria in their gut, and I'm interested to see what types of bacteria are found there. So those are the types of symbiosis that I actually look for.
Microbial, very nice. Joey, do you have a question? Thank you, Sari.
How long did you stay underwater? How long did you stay
Well,
underwater?
technically underwater it's 12 hours because you start counting once the
Oh,
submersible has been launched. When you launch it, it already submerges. So
oh,
the
but
entire trip took around 12 hours. But if you're asking about how long did it take for us, how long we stayed at the bottom, it was 4 hours. Yes, Gabe, I think
whoa.
I have a question.
So
Oh wait,
is it
I have
2 hours down and then like how many hours down and then
4 hours going down.
4 hours?
so
Wow.
Yeah,
you
4 hours
spent
going down and
all
4 hours
time.
going up. And then 4 hours at the bottom. So it's around
Okay,
12
okay.
hours.
So
Wow.
you're down
we
for like
can we could
14
have
hours.
stayed longer, but I think human limitation would dictate that 4 hours is already long. It's actually
Are you
Kailangan
long.
na
still
umihi. So there's a
Yeah.
question over in chat from Matsi. Oh,
I,
what course do you
s-
study to become a marine
I
scientist? Thank you, Joey.
What
still
did I
have
study to be?
I still
Biology.
have
I
enough.
took biology, and then there are these different levels of academic milestones. So you do bachelor's. So for bachelor's, I did biology. I was supposed to go to med school. So I took biology as a pre-med. It means a preparation for medicine to become a medical doctor. But I realized towards the end of my biology degree, I I'm not into hospitals. I'm more into the ocean. So after doing bachelor's, I went to Marine Science Institute to actually take a master's degree, and then after a master's degree, I further study about the oceans, and I took a PhD with a scholarship in Canada. Yeah.
Right. And just for since many of the people in the call are from Baguio, you actually
Oh,
studied in Baguio.
I graduated from UP Baguio. Hello, mga taga UP Baguio dyan. Shout out.
I have a
I miss the
mustache.
pines and I miss the ubi jam.
Mustache.
Okay. In case Ian or Chloe have any questions, you can
Oh
just
wait.
raise your hand, or Joey if you have. Okay, Ian first. Ian, Chloe, Joey, then Alex. Okay. So go ahead, Ian.
Did you take a sample of the water down there to check for any microorganisms?
Yes, we took samples of seawater down there, a few ml, a few milliliters. So my students are, and so the samples we also took samples of amphipods, the cockroach looking thing
Ew.
that I told you earlier. We also took samples of that, and then they've been donated to the National Museum. And I think the National Museum will be putting them into an exhibit. So in case museums open again, you'll be able to see a section of the Emden Deep in the Natural History
Wow.
Museum with some of the samples that we've taken from there. But for the
Nice.
microorganisms, we will be processing them not now, but probably later. Yes.
Okay, just as a question to sort of support what Ian asked, how do you ensure that the creatures don't explode or deteriorate when they get up because they're
Yeah,
under
so
the
that's a
pressure?
very good question. No, we don't know actually if they exploded or not.
Oh,
For the larger organisms, because the exoskeleton are quite rigid, they tend to survive. But for
okay.
microorganisms, it's another story. Because microorganisms don't have rigid exoskeletons. They don't have rigid sturdy covering. They can explode. They can be affected by the change in the pressure immediately, and that's the reason what that the approach that we use to study microorganisms is more on the genetics, because we can't see the cells anymore, but we can still capture the DNA, and then we study the DNA. But for the
Awesome.
larger organisms, they tend to survive because of the rigid exoskeletons.
Okay. We're gonna go to Chloe, Alex,
Wait.
then Joey. Chloe, go ahead.
So I'm gonna be last because I have to get something.
Okay, Joey. Go ahead, Chloe.
I was just going to ask, like, what was I going to ask? Sorry, my thoughts float away a lot. Like,
I'm gonna make like a little mask.
how are you? Like, is it possible to clean like that deep down? Because I saw the trash.
Yeah, so there's a lot of
Are you
trash down
sure?
there. The technology to go down, it's still it's still developing. It's very expensive to actually launch an expedition such as what we did. To give you an idea, that entire trip alone, that one dive, almost costed around $1 million.
Ooh,
So cleaning the bottom of the ocean is not practical because it's gonna be, in terms of resource and time, there's just gonna be a lot of it. So the approach is for us to prevent things from going down there. So we can't do anything anymore about the nature might be able to do something with the trash that's down there. But us humans, we can't do anything with those trash. But we can do something to actually prevent more trash from going there. And that's the challenge for us. I also believe and I also would like to think that what we saw is an eye opener on the extent and the true gravity of plastics pollution. And hopefully, what we found there can change behavior, can encourage more people to be more cautious of what they use and how they actually manage plastic waste, and not just plastic waste, any type of waste. And hopefully, you guys, the younger generations, who knows, in your time, probably you will find the technology to actually go down there and clean up what we've done, what the previous generations have done to the bottom of the oceans.
we actually have a project with Vivita internationally where we're collaborating with an artist to make, well, as of now, art from
Trash.
from plastics, particularly. Sort of related to that, is there anything other than, well, we just said it, trash, than just sand and trash at the bottom of the ocean?
Rocks, I guess. The thing with the bottom of the ocean is that it's actually covered with a thick layer of sediment, because whatever is falling from the surface will just accumulate down there. So if you want to understand what's the surface of the bottom really looks like, we need to dig down. We need to dig deeper. And but we did not do that because we also did not want to disturb the environment too much. Also, the expedition itself was not designed to be a scientific investigatory expedition. It's really more of a first time, just exploration. So yeah, typical of the bottom trench would have the rocks and other organisms that rely on scavenging. So that's what typically you would see in the bottom.
Okay. Alex, you're up. Alex Troll, go ahead.
Who inspired you to explore the ocean?
Who inspired me to explore the oceans? Huh. Good question. I grew up by the sea. So if in my parents' house you go out of you go out of the veranda or the balcony, you would actually see the sea, the ocean. I think growing up, there's already I'd been exposed to the environment a lot that I became curious about it. I just needed a platform or an opportunity to actually further explore it. That's why my first plan was to become a medical student, to become a doctor. But when I was given the opportunity, I met this marine biologist, and then I was just inspired by what was he's doing that time, and then I was inspired by his adventures, and then I thought probably this is a possibility. This is a possible career I can take, and then it just changed everything. Being exposed to nature inspired me to become a marine scientist. And I realized that I like more going out there in the field and then looking for things and then answering questions than doing other stuff. And I was very, yeah, I think from the very start, from the very beginning, my parents were also very supportive of what I want. So it wasn't a problem for me to take this field. They understood from early on that probably this is really what I wanted to do in life. So they did not push me to take medicine if I didn't like it. Yeah.
And if any of you want to start beginning and you're a college graduate of a relevant course, I saw on Dr. Deo's Twitter feed that they're looking for research assistants. And if
Yeah.
you have the qualifications, that's a way to start
Yeah.
learning under him, as a way to sort of get into it. Ninja Joey, do you have a question, Ninja Joey? Oh, wait, I think I have to unmute you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
To...
No, 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 no,
Yeah,
no.
go ahead. Go ahead,
So,
Ninja
let me
Joey.
get my note. Let me get my name. Did you wear special equipment when you went down there?
So the submersible itself
Wait,
was designed to be very habitable and comfortable. But we needed to wear this special, the blue thing that you saw from the
Yeah.
video. It will protect your body from any fire or explosion. So
wait,
that particular thing cannot be burned. It doesn't
wait.
burn. So that's something that we needed to wear inside. So in case
Okay.
there were problems, we will still be protected.
I
There's
have
a
one more
follow-up
question.
question from Joey, and then we'll go to Alex, and then
If you're,
just the last
are you gonna go to the Mariana Trench next?
Are you? um, I should say wait for the next
If
few
you,
years.
no, no, no. If you're gonna go down there, just go a third of the way, because in the bottom, there's actual megalodons there. My friends have
one.
not figured
Well,
it
you'd be
out.
lucky to see megalodons.
Yeah,
No,
good.
really.
Yeah.
I
They
think
survived in the
Alex.
trenches.
Thanks, Joey. I think I'll go to Sari
Okay.
first, and then
Okay,
Alex. Okay,
unmute yourself.
Sari, go ahead.
How can you live in the submarine?
How can you
It's
live
just
in the
small.
submarine? Yeah, but it's only for 12 hours. So in the submarine, that there's a system that we call the life support system. So the submarine itself is the 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 environment within the submarine itself is like the environment when you are outside. That's how the submarine was actually designed. So on a more technical basis, the main compartment where the humans are housed is actually made up of 90 millimeters of titanium in a
Oh,
99.99% almost perfect spherical shape. So that would
it
allow
resists
you to be
temperature
not
best.
crushed by
Yeah.
pressure, but it also allowed it to become habitable. The inner side of the compartment is also supplied with oxygen, similar to the composition that you find outside. So there's not much adjustment that's happening in your lungs. And in case of emergency, in case the oxygen supply gets cut off or something happens, we also have 20 bottles of oxygen in front of us that we can just manually attach to ourselves and then breathe. It will allow us to survive for around 25 hours. And hopefully within the 25 hours, we were already able to find a way out.
Find a way back up. I
Yes.
think
Oh,
somewhat
what did you
related.
saw
Oh,
in?
sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So, how can you see down there? It's so dark.
Yeah, but the submarine actually have strobe lights. Strobe lights are very, very powerful lights. So going down,
It's
there are
like
like
a light that
six
is
strobe lights.
here or more brighter than this.
It's way, way brighter than that. If you actually look directly into the strobe lights, you're gonna get blind. That's how powerful those lights are. They're specially designed for the submarine because most lights cannot survive the depth. They get crushed. But those lights were
Never mind.
specially designed for submarines to actually go down 10,000 meters below.
All right, thank you, Sari. Somewhat related, from Justin Matthew Pe over on YouTube. Were you bored during your trip? All this
Was
while,
I
Mark.
bored? Not really. Because I was always saying that it was like a fairy tale coming to reality for me as a marine scientist. You know, most of the things I teach, I am professor. So I teach these things in the class. But most of the things that I am teaching were just, observations from the surface, meaning they were just sending cameras down there or they were sending equipment. But that time was like, everything that I've read is becoming a reality. I read how light dissipates with depth, and that time I was seeing that light was dissipating at 300 meters, and I was just very excited. So it's
Wow.
like a fairy tale book coming to reality. I thought that it was also a privilege because when I come back, I will not only be teaching something that I've read, I will already be teaching something that I've experienced myself.
Okay, I'll go for the final two questions. Um, Alex, go ahead. You had a question, and then I'll go to the comments.
Did you did you see like old pictures in like the 90s, or have you seen stuff that are historical?
Sorry, did I see pictures?
Old pictures that are like historical.
Down
Oh,
there. Okay.
down there? um, Good thing that none. Aside from the trash, we did not find any other human-made or man-made materials down there. But in the north of the Philippine Trench, if you go to Samar, you will find a lot of ships that got sunk during the World War. So that's where you
Oh,
will find
wow.
probably old stuff, but not in the bottom of the Philippine Trench, not in the Emden.
And one final question. Did you go through the depressurization process when you went up because the pressure under the sea is so different?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. As a diver myself, so I do scuba diving. If you go really, really deep, you need to there's a depressurization that's happening, right? But for the submersible was actually designed again to be habitable, where the pressure inside from the surface going to the bottom remains the same. So there's no need to depressurize. So there's no need for your lungs to actually adjust that much. It will adjust on the percentage of the oxygen, but it will not. No adjustment for the pressure itself. So no, once you go down, you can just go directly up. The
Wow.
the chamber itself is pressurized.
So thank you so much, Dr. Deo Onda, and thank you so much to our Vivita members, our Vivinauts, for asking the different questions. I'm going to remove you from the call for now, and then a little later
One
on,
more questions.
we'll have a little bit of um, a few seconds with Dr. Deo to take a picture. We'd really, really like to thank you for being our very, very, very first guest in our
Thank you. I hope I
series.
lived up to the expectations. But
Oh,
thank you for
absolutely.
thank you for the invitation too.
Oh, absolutely, because this is all about really out of this world conversations. We're doing it all Thursdays of September. And these are really opportunities to meet and ask questions from adults who do awesome things. Sometimes it's their job, and we're broadcasting it over, well, we're streamcasting it to Vivi Stop Baguio on FB, and also on YouTube. Today, of course, we had Dr. Deo Onda. Awesome conversation. He's the Philippines' only microbial oceanographer. Next week, we're going to have our second edition, and we are excited to announce that we'll be featuring Danica Reyapel. She is a naval pilot and a graduate of the Philippine Military Academy, and she's ready to share with you her different adventures, her different experiences in becoming a pilot in the Philippine Navy. She's excited to meet you all and share what she knows and what her journey is. And you can all join us through our Facebook site, through our YouTube site. We're publishing the links on how to do that on our Facebook site, especially. And with that, we're really coming to almost exactly an hour of talking with Dr. Dale on that. And I'm going to give it back to you for our last 2 minutes. If you want to inspire kids to get into, who want to get into your field, what are the things that they can do at their age as
Yeah,
18 year
I
olds?
always advise my students, when even if after entering a master's program, I still see students who are wanderers and then curious, and then what they want is just to have fun while doing what they want. And to those kids who are listening right now, the world is actually it's very amazing, and the opportunities are endless. You just need to ask questions. You just need to be curious. But remember to have fun. And that is an important thing. Do something where your heart is happy, and do something that and also do something where your neighbors and your fellow humans will actually benefit from. So hopefully through the stories that I've shared and the explorations that I've done, you were able to see possible opportunities, a career opportunity in the future, what that you might want to take, and what where you want to go. And ask your parents. Always ask your parents. We all need guidance. So if you want to do something, ask your parents' advice. Don't forget that. So yeah, I had fun talking to you, and hopefully you also had fun listening to me.
It was an honor and a pleasure to have you once again, our very first guest of our very first episode of Out of This World Conversation, Dr. Deo Onda. On behalf of Vivistop Baguio and the whole Vivita community, we'd like to thank you for tuning in to Out of This World Conversations. It's conversations with adults who do awesome things, and kids can ask questions and converse with them. Till next week at this time on this same space, I'm Gabe Mercado. Thank you, everyone. We're going offline right now. Bye.